Whoa, the Meetup live stream is coming.
What's that?
Meetup live stream is coming according to my phone.
Yeah. Yeah, something about Sherry Lynn and actually getting stuff out there. Yeah, that's the wrong. Oh, that's right. Okay, that's the wrong thing. No, I just started a live stream because it's scheduled to start at 6:30.
Is the YouTube thing doing this?
And it's YouTube that if I don't start it, it actually wants to kill it because I had it programmed to start at 6:30 on YouTube.
Nice.
I'm learning more about it since I revived my other channel and started putting up videos from camping and other things.
Nice. I've started limping ahead with my Hayshawn series.
So
Just
we'll
trying to do something with that.
see if we get more than 3 folks show up. Be kind of nice. We're following the ratio though. I think there was 10 registered, so fall into meetups ratio. So I need to go to the camera.
What's the Wi-Fi here? Is it Superior Group?
Superior Group Guest.
Go. Thank you.
Extra light.
Nice.
Yeah, I upgraded some things for my video camera I bought last year. Added a light to it. It's better chips. 4 batteries. Well, the batteries are actually inexpensive.
Yeah.
This is the batteries that even the best ones only last like an hour and a half, 2 hours record time.
Yeah.
And when I'm out hiking and stuff, I burn through them pretty quick. And the nice thing is I can charge them off of my recharger thing.
Nice.
So.
I got a solar recharger. It's okay, but I've been using it a bit.
Yeah, well, I don't have one of those yet. Don't have one of those yet. All right, we'll give it until 6:35 and then we'll get started. So those of you out there in YouTube land, for if we have anyone show up or show up later, we're just giving it a couple minutes to see how many folks are going to show up. Other than that, it'll be a really interesting presentation, I think. Useful. It's down to the average user for a presentation. I tried to avoid anything massively techy in it. And it's stuff that most people can do on their own on their website. Go back and watch the video and you'll recatch things.
Nice.
So we'll see how it goes.
I have a question because I am the first time.
You're here for the first time? Oh, Russ,
I'm
I do
$5
need to pass the hat to get it.
Aha.
Can I get you tomorrow morning?
No, you can
Okay.
It's fine. It doesn't. All it does is help me pay for the room.
Now I know.
That's all it does. Because I think there's been one time in the years I've done this where I had more than the cost of the room, which is how it always works. I do it to help people and to basically get my name out there. Is what it's for. Need to find a way. I'd have to have a separate monitor. I wonder if there's a way I can connect my iPad to my laptop for a monitor.
No, but it can go the other way. Your MacBook can turn your desktop Mac into a monitor.
I'm just thinking, so, you know, I'd like to monitor the online streaming, but I can't when I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what's happening and see if anyone shows up.
And also need like a communications officer who's
Yeah.
on the other screen going.
So well, even if I had another screen there, I could just glance over at it from time to time.
Yeah.
See what's up. See if by chance, you know, eventually I think I'll gain an audience and people will show up for my live streams. Right now I'm just in delusional land.
If you go onto the YouTube stream, does it show how many people are showing?
Yeah, it actually does.
So can you bring up the YouTube on your iPad?
Oh, that won't tell me.
Oh,
It has to be done from, because the iPad see the YouTube stream. Oh, hey, look at that. It doesn't show up there because I've got the presentation on. Does the presentation still move forward and backwards? No, presentation doesn't work if I'm on another screen. Yeah, well, according to the, oh, come on, reload. Did you just reload on me? You did. Why'd you reload? Oh, crap, I know why you reloaded, there you go.
The mouse button.
I hit the button on here, which acts like a mouse. And the streaming health is kind of weak at the moment. It's a weak internet connection. In the end, it gets there, and sometimes it works well, other times not so well. Okay, let's try that again. All right, so I've just learned something about this that I cannot do. All right. I had tested you at home. That's okay. All right, we'll get started. Okay, for the benefit of you, who your name is?
My name is Christina.
Christina.
Aberek.
For the benefit of you, because these other two guys know me quite well, my name
Yeah.
is John Overall. I do web development for WordPress and hosting, and I have been doing this now for 10 years, give or take. 10 years in WordPress, and actually it has been 10 years, because my youngest is 10 years old now. So I've been doing it as long as he's been alive. And I've been actually doing internet communications and such since 1999. So been doing this for a while, but been focused on WordPress quite a bit for the last few years. And my specialty is in fixing hacked WordPress websites, bringing them back. It doesn't seem to be as big of an issue now as it was, say, 3 or 4 years ago. There are not as many because there's a little bit better security on everything. But still got other things to develop. All right, without much further ado, we shall move into this. Okay, this is a presentation for a blank screen. One more time. Wrong button. There we go. All right. Presented by me, John Overall, and my podcast, WP Plugins, A2Z.com. And this one is on site security, and it's good for both WordPress and ClassicPress. For those of you out there that might be looking at using ClassicPress, which is the fork of WordPress as it stood at 4.9. And it's a community that's growing quite rapidly, and it's a really nice system in itself. So what we're going to be talking about here is security and keeping your website secure and securing it up, and how you would secure up your WordPress website using plugins or add-ons or a couple of third-party features. Also, how you will dig into the site to learn about what's up with your site to begin with. So first off, what we got to look at is base security for your website. And that base security is basically starting first off with your hosting provider. Find out who hosts your website, and once you've got that found out, find out, do they offer you an SSL certificate for free? If they don't, you should find a new host. Right now, about the only ones I know that's still not giving away free SSLs is GoDaddy. They're about the only ones I know of right now. Most everyone else is giving away the free SSL. They don't cost anything anymore, and they are important for your website. They're important for SEO, they're important for search engines, they're important for your communications between you and users. In fact, all the modern browsers now, if they hit a website that's not SSL, they put a big warning up on the top bar. It says, warning, this site is not secure, panic, run, hit the hills. So, not true, but that's basically what they do. Make sure it's set up and running correctly. And if your website's been up and running for a while and you haven't done, if you didn't do the SSL conversion yourself and you let maybe your web hosting provider do it, or you hired someone to do it, or you did it with a plugin for your website, there's a very good chance that it's not been converted correctly. So you'll want to check that. You'll want to also install a plugin called Abandoned Plugins Check. This plugin here, once installed, and it will allow you to go through and look at things in your plugin list, and it will tell you how old the plugin is, if it's not been updated in quite some time. This starts to be a problem, especially like this is off my dev site or my sandbox site. I got a plugin there that's 1,038 days old. You know, that's about 3 years plus old. And at that point there, that plugin could have security issues. It might not. It might still be very good. But when it's that old, you'll want to check into it and see if that plugin needs to be replaced. It'll also tell you, I don't have one in this list here, but it'll tell you if the plugin has been abandoned or deleted from WordPress, which is important because in the last year I've noticed a mass influx of plugins being completely turfed out of the WordPress.org repository for whatever reason. Either they were old, they were security, the developer's not working with them anymore, any number of reasons they've tossed them. You don't know until you research it to see what's happening with it. So install this plugin, very simple to look for. Just look for abandoned plugins check. And if you want a link to it, it's again, Vendy abandons plugin check at WordPress.org. Very useful plugin. I use it a lot now, especially if I take over a website for someone or I'm doing a site audit on a site. I use this to help me determine what kind of stuff they have. Of course, your base set, the other thing aside from your site SSL settings is checking your base security and your root files, your database health, checking error logs on your website. And the error logs are contained in two places generally. There's an error log file that is created in your root files for your WordPress account. You can't get to it directly, but it may or may not work for you on WordPress. But I reviewed a plugin that was written for ClassicPress that puts a back end on inside your WordPress website that finds that error log and makes it readable for you, color codes the errors. Beautiful piece of programming. Works great, but he wrote it specifically for ClassicPress, and chances are it will work on WordPress at the moment. And that one there, I don't remember the name of it, but you'll find it by researching it on my plugins website because I reviewed it in one of my shows. Database health, making sure the database has been cleaned, not running excessively, doesn't have a whole lot of junk in it. If you don't understand something like that, you may want to look at hiring someone like myself to go in and have a look, make sure it's cleaned and working. Again, just a listing of the error logs. You've got inside your cPanel. If you know where your cPanel is located, inside there in that list of all the buttons, there's one there that says error log, and that is a separate error log from your website. That is a server error log. And some hosts have all the errors from everybody that is sharing that hosting show up for you. Some hosts, like myself, only your errors will show up in that log. So it varies from host to host. So hopefully it's just your errors, because I've seen it where someone's contacted me, I've got all these errors in cPanel, and when I go look, they're not actually yours. They belong to someone else's account in the shared hosting environment you're in. So not all hosts separate it out. So you want to review those errors. If you don't understand them, again, reach out to someone like myself who can help you make sense of it. And granted, there will be a fee for that. Okay, the next thing you want to do with your site is find out what state it is at before you start adding things to it and changing them up. Okay, first off, you're going to want to run some initial speed tests and some scans to see what's happening with your site. GTmetrix is my favorite for go-to see how a site is running, but the nice thing about it is it tells me a bunch about files. It'll tell me if I'm getting non-HTTP files. If I'm not getting everything through HTTPS or SSL, it'll give me a list of files and it'll pop up a warning for that. And you can also use page speed grader for that too. It'll also give you lots of other information of things that are going on in your site. The other thing you can use is a plugin, or not a plugin, but a program called Screaming Frog. And Screaming Frog is very nice. It's very expensive for the pro version. It's 200 pounds, which translates to what? About $260 for us now, give or take. So, but you can get the free version, which will allow you to investigate up to 500 URLs on your website, which is very nice. And if your website's not too big, that might be more than adequate for your needs. I've used it on small websites in the free version before I finally broke down and bought the premium version. And the free version worked great most of the time. And you'll run the tests on those, and it'll help you find SSL issues that you may be having on the site itself. There we go. Okay, with Screaming Frog, what you can do is it'll kick out tons of reports. You can see numerous reports across the top here, but it'll kick out reports, and that does not fit the screen. That's a bummer. Okay, I'm gonna have to remember that for this TV next time. TV is not as wide as my monitor. And down the side here, where the arrows are pointing, is to items and files that are non-HTTPS in there. And there was a whole list in this site that I had run the scan on. And what happens is you can also resort the columns in it. It's very quick, it's easy. The other beautiful thing is if you're dealing with SEO on your site, Screaming Frog is a fantastic thing for you to help sort out your SEO and figure out stuff that's missing, needs to be done. Use it to track and repair everything on your site. The premium version, as I said, is expensive, but if you're doing a lot of work, it might be worth the money to you. And it allows you to actually customize the scans you want, going after specific stuff in your site, and to also go in and save your scans. So you can save scans each time, and then you can collect a whole bunch of different scans as you've improved to see what might have gotten missed along the way. Another thing you're going to want to do, is you're going to want to add an audit tracker to your website. Okay, this audit tracker is especially important if you're not the only one with administrative access to the website. I initially started using this plugin because of clients, and mainly because I'd do a bunch of work, client would go in and change something and do something, they'd break something, they go, I don't know what happened, and I had to guess. So I put this audit tracker in here, and it's called WP Security Audit Log. It is a freemium plugin, meaning that the free version you get, and then there's the premium version. I've always used the free version. I've never had the need for the premium version. The premium version gives you more extensive tracking, sends you out reports, and just does a great job. And if you got multiple users, it's a great thing to have. It saved me on more than one occasion with multiple users, and then I just check this audit log and I see exactly what someone's done or hadn't done at the website. It tells you who's logged in, when they logged in last. It also gives you 404 errors. It tells you if they've updated a plugin, turned off a plugin, added a new plugin, turned on a plugin. It even has a setting in it that if someone turns it off, you get an email the moment it's turned off. So your client can't just turn it off on you. You'll get an email notification if it's turned off, which has been very nice and useful. Excellent plugin to use. It helps you through a lot of things in here and saves you a lot of grief and a lot of time, especially when going back and figuring out what's gone wrong with your website. Okay, so on to how to protect your website and boost your security on your website. So what we're going to do is discuss a couple of plugins here, a couple of settings on those plugins, and how they can help you out. So what you're looking at for this is you're looking at security layers added to your website. Now, there's a lot of disagreement from a lot of different developers on the best ways to go about this. Well, what I'm giving you is my opinion and what I found works. I have a couple of developer friends that disagree with some of the stuff I do because they think what I use isn't good enough, or they think it's too bulky for the website, or too much overhead. But I find it works well. I could just be spoiled from my own servers and having unlimited resources too, so it could just be that.
Security is a religion, and you get into religious fights.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. Okay, so first off, what we're going to do is we got your security. I recommend, the number one thing I recommend is word vents. Okay, and this is one of the ones I get in the biggest arguments over, is word vents. Because WordFence is a heavy plugin. It can be heavy unless you configure it correctly. If you configure it down to its lightest use settings, it helps secure your site beautifully, and it doesn't take up as much resources. It takes a little bit to configure it, but one of the beautiful things about WordPress is once you configure one site with it, you can export a key from that site that you save into a text file, and every new site you create, you take that key and you import it into WordPress, and instantly that new site has the exact configuration of the other one. Saves tons of time. Take a lot of time once and save a ton of time later, and that's what I've done with it. I've got a little text file sits on my desktop, and every time I install WordFence, I open it up, copy the key, paste, boom, done. So every once in a while, I go through and double check my settings on my main site that I use it on, and if anything's changed and tweaked, I get a new key. So WordFence. The other thing is Cloudflare. I've tried to use Cloudflare a few times. It requires way too much time for me to manage and monitor. Some people love it to no end. It is quite good. I have no qualms against it. I work with websites that are using Cloudflare, but when things go wrong, they go wrong in a bad way in Cloudflare. They're not small. You can't just turn it off, because what you do with Cloudflare is your site is actually redirected through Cloudflare before it's delivered to the person. So when someone comes in to view your website, they come in, they hit Cloudflare's cache of stuff, and if it's not there, then they go to your website. So what Cloudflare does is constantly pulls down data from your website into their caching. Very good. They are very good if your site's ever targeted for a DDoS attack or something of that nature, or a spam attack or a hacking attack. Cloudflare is very good at blocking that information and stopping it. So Cloudflare is worth the effort and time if you're having issues. They do have a free version, but I believe their premium version is better at $20 a month, something in that neighborhood. And the configuration of it can take a fair amount of time. But once configured, it's supposedly pretty good, except when something goes wrong. And it's about, I don't know, I haven't heard of any problems with Cloudflare for months now.
It's matured well.
Yeah. For a while there, it was regular, and then it would seem like every 6 months or so, but I haven't heard of any issues in a while. So it varies though. And of course, like any other big time place, everybody has problems eventually. Nobody's immune. Okay, the other thing you'll want to be looking at is Htaccess File. We'll discuss a little bit about the Htaccess File. This requires going into your files to set up. This is not, there's very little automation you can do here. It's manual editing of the file. If you're not comfortable manually editing the files there, if you use a plugin such as Yoast SEO, it will allow you to access the Htaccess file if it's writable through the Yoast SEO plugin to edit it. But be aware, if you misedit the Htaccess file, you could lock yourself out of your website completely. Not permanently, but you'll have to come in through another door to get to fix it. The WP config file, editing that, there's a few things and tricks you can do to that to add to that. And then another plugin I use, which has been my favorite for about 8 years. Actually, it was a slightly different version. I used to use one called File Monitor, WP File Monitor Plus, but the developer abandoned it. This guy picked up that plugin, improved the security of it, fixed it, and then re-released it under a similar name so people could find it. I was really thrilled that they'd done that. It was one I was going to end up trying to fork myself if somebody else hadn't forked it, because it's very useful. And what WP File Monitor Plus does for you is it allows you to see real-time changes on your files in your website. In other words, the moment a file is changed, you can have scans that run regularly, and you get emailed the notifications, or if you're in your website, it pops up a notification if you have it configured that way, and allows you to fix things. The reason I love it so much is I actually had an event, I guess it's about 5 or 6 years ago, when I was fixing lots of hacked websites, where I was using this, and I had a live hacker on the website. He was hacking files as fast as I was fixing files. I was fixed, he would hack, and he kept going to different places on there, and it took me forever to find his back door. because I can't remember how many subdirectories deep he buried his back door. But once I found it, I shut him out. But what I kept catching was I had this thing constantly refreshing, so every time he changed files, I knew exactly where he was. So it was a cat and mouse game. I think it took me about an hour to shut him down. It was really entertaining. It really actually kind of was. It was cool.
Yeah, that's your version of entertainment.
I was like, wow, all right, let's go, dude. Kind of reminded me of what's that movie? Hackers.
Hackers.
And hackers, you know.
Does File Manager allow you to turn off directories so you're not looking at having it report all the cache updates?
Yes, and we'll talk a bit about that when I get to it. Okay, so we're also going to talk about adding the security to the Htaccess file. This is a sample of some code here. If you want this, send me an email. I'll send you a copy. But there's lots of samples out there on the internet for code to put to the Htaccess file. What you're looking at here is you're looking at items such as stopping the RPC, the remote
procedure call.
Remote procedure call to your website. You know, if you don't need that for any external programs or anything, you want it blocked. You've also got one here for protecting the Htaccess file itself. This is a file, it's a command in the Htaccess file to protect the Htaccess file. And what it's for is to prevent people from accessing it or editing it. And it just denies all access to it. The WP config file, protecting that one. That's a real important file to protect because that's the file that contains the gold in your website. If they get to your WP config file, they've got everything. Everything they need to take over your site. It's also got one in here for disable directory browsing. Now this isn't needed as much anymore unless you're on cheap hosting. And I find most hosts have directory indexes turned off now, but every once in a while I still run across a host that doesn't have directory indexes turned off.
Oh, one Friday.
Yeah, it's like, really? You got directory indexes turned on? But it happens. And what directory indexing is people can go in there, find the directory of your site, say your uploads directory, and they just type your domain /wp -admin/uploads, and poof, they get the listing of all the directories in there. And then they can cycle through those directories and see all your files. You know, and that's the way some hackers get in, is through those things. They download, and sometimes if the server is really poorly configured, they can upload to that directory through the directory indexing. So that's a really good one to have in there if you're unsure. And then of course the final bit in here is just the standard WordPress code that goes in there for doing the permalinks. So these are the things that you'll want to do and get that taken care of on your website in the Htaccess. And there's a lot of security protocols that can be added to the Htaccess to block and turn off things in there and block them up. It's just a matter of getting the code. I've got a big long one. I couldn't find it when I was writing this up. I've got a big, long list of protocols, and I just pick and choose depending on the website I'm securing up and what they need. Okay, WP File Monitor plugin. This plugin here, simply look for WP File Monitor. Very excellent plugin. When you download and configure it, it gives you the configuration settings to set it up to go in and have it scan hourly, scan twice a day, scan once a day, or scan weekly. I personally have it set up on my machines, on my systems, to scan twice a day. Then you determine the email address it goes to, and it sends out an email if it finds a file has changed. Then it has a box for excluded files, and it has some presets on the bottom of it for turning off and excluding things such as images and other stuff that is low risk at being a hacked file or a compromised file. After you've had it running for a little while, and what happens to me is I can't always remember what directories everything is in. So what happens is I install it, activate it, let it run a few days, and I get the emails from it, and it tells me the file's changed, and I find, okay, that's the directory for the cache plugins. I go in and put that in the website. That's the directory for this thing that's always changing, common code, you know, and put it in there. And then I no longer get emails from it except when something changes. And you're hoping that nothing changes you don't expect. The one thing to be ready for is when you do your updates for WordPress, be ready for the email that's going to follow from your scanner, because your scanner is going to pick up every one of those files that you changed when you did all your updates. So if you do your updates on a daily basis, you know, as plugins come through on a daily basis sometimes, if you got enough plugins on a website, and every time you update, you'll get an email from it. So the configuration of it, pretty straightforward, very excellent plugin, and it sets up very nicely for you to deal with it. Cloudflare itself, one of the things it does for you is it adds a firewall to your website, and that firewall is very useful, and that was something I forgot to talk about when I had WordFence up. WordFence sets up a firewall too. The free version of it, if you use the free version of WordFence, the rules for the firewall are about 15 to 30 days out of date. They told me that they're 30 days out of date. I did an interview with one of their main promoters, main people at WordFence about 2-3 weeks ago. I interviewed Kathy Zant. So she gave me a lot of information about how WordFence has changed and the settings on it now. It's a very good interview if you want to go check that out and find out about it. And WordFence, very easy to set up the firewall. It's basically once you've installed the plugin and activated, it pops up a window asking you to set up the firewall. You can either say yes or no. If you say yes, it'll walk you through the settings for it. It'll ask you to download your Htaccess file so you have a backup copy of it. And then it goes in and makes configuration changes in your Htaccess file for you to set up the firewall. Cloudflare itself, it's a little bit more of a complex thing. I've only gone through one of them. You've got to go in, you've got to get your IP address for your server, put it into Cloudflare, redirect some DNS settings for your domain to Cloudflare's IPs, and then you have to go in and configure your rules as you need them to be. And therein lies what I think is the problem with Cloudflare, is that your DNS no longer goes directly to your website. It goes through Cloudflare, and then Cloudflare does its own DNS switch to it. Now granted, if your caching is working at Cloudflare, no problem, because all your files are there while they're still on the other server. So their advantage, disadvantage to it.
With Cloudflare, when you start flipping the DNS, you have to watch your mail.
Yeah.
That gets stamped or strung up.
Yeah, so I got, after trying to go through with their tax and the hosting tax, they said no more Cloudflare. They couldn't figure each other out.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the problem with it. That's one of the reasons why it was the additional setup. I just went, Cloudflare is not worth my headache right now. Yeah. And until I need to actually be involved in it directly, I just leave it alone. Which, kind of, leaves me with sometimes the people that I have arguments with and discussions over about what's going to be the better thing to use and how it's going to work out. And then we got, the one good thing about Cloudflare is its content delivery network. That's the one thing I hear is very good. But if you need a content delivery network, you can find other less expensive CDNs than Cloudflare and do them up. There's lots of options out there. The security for WordPress and ClassicPress is relatively straightforward for the most part. There are a few plugins that work very well for it, just the ones I've covered here tonight. And these are pretty much the ones I use on a regular basis for the sites, and just monitoring and keeping them set up and secured. And then of course the other best thing for you to do for your security, update on a regular basis. Don't do it immediately the moment they release the latest version of WordPress. Although they've been really good for the last couple of years, I think they haven't released a version and broke everyone's websites. Although there's, conflicting definition on what breaks it. Gutenberg kind of broke websites for quite a while, and it's going to continue to do that. But They used to release a version of WordPress and it would white screen out your entire website. I remember those days. I haven't seen a white screened update in a long time, but it could still happen. Someone could miss a comma somewhere in the code and poof, the whole thing falls apart. So that's what you got to be aware of with updates. I usually wait a week after a update is done, just to be sure that there's no problems, because within the first, like you said with Windows earlier, within the first couple of days, you'll hear all the people screaming about the problems. If there's no problems within the first couple of days, then I go ahead and start updating to my clients. Same with plugins. Don't automatically update a plugin just because the author's released a new one. This is more common for plugins, that the plugin developer updates something and he breaks his own plugin. The nice thing about plugins and WordPress itself, though, is if you break something on it or an update breaks it, all you have to do is reverse back to the latest version. Unless, of course, there was something in the update that changed the database for that plugin or WordPress, and they usually don't. I don't think I've had a time yet that I couldn't just go back to the previous version and have it work the way it was. The other thing you'll want to do with your security on your website is PHP 7.4 is coming out. I think it's 7.4 now.
Yeah, it's currently 7.3, 7.4 is...
7.4 is coming out.
That's right.
PHP 7.1 is at the end of its lifespan in December of this year, so they're no longer going to support it. 5.6 has been abandoned a long time ago. If you're still on 5.6, you need to get off that as soon as possible, because eventually they're going to start finding holes that were never patched, and they're going to start exploiting it, because the holes always exist. And the hackers are always inventing new ways to get into it. So you want to make sure you've upgraded to the latest version of PHP. Problem with that is if you have an older version of WordPress or of some plugins and such, they won't work on the latest version of PHP, which is a minimum 7.1, and your website could white screen just going from PHP 5.6 to 7.1, which means you do need to have someone professional come in and look and see what plugin is the issue, so it can be fixed.
Also make sure when they upgrade, you turn on all the modules you need.
Yeah. Well, that's a problem too. It's like I run my own servers. I have 4 servers. I'm looking at bringing a 5th one online pretty soon. And I did that on one of my servers. I brought in the latest version of PHP, and I went to upgrade. It's like, oh, damn, I forgot to turn on this, that, and that. So I had to go back in. But the beauty of it is because I have access to the server, I can go turn them on. It's not that hard. And most hosting companies will turn on the modules you need, provided they're not a security risk. And most of the modules are not a security risk that everyone needs. So yeah. So that's pretty much it for this one. This one was pretty brief. There's not a lot to it. Security is not overly complicated. People make it more than it really is. So if you got any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Take me in different directions.
I've been running a couple of WordPress sites. I'm just a user, I'm not a developer,
Yeah.
like you two are. But when I first lit up our personal site, everybody and their grandma wanted to hit WP login.
And they still do.
Yeah, so I ended up renaming it, and
I use iTheme Security for that.
That just slows them down though.
yeah, 90% of the people when I went through the logs were just hammering on that, and once I turned that off, they all went away.
Yeah.
And then the other one is anytime there's a plugin that's been announced, they want to go through the plugins, and I'm seriously thinking about renaming the plugin directory.
Oh, you could. Plugin will still work.
Yeah, it's from what I read, it's some configurations you got to do in WP config.
I don't know. I've misnamed plugin directories a couple times when I've uploaded, and plugins still work fine.
Oh yeah, some WordPress's capacity to go find those.
Yeah.
It's like a truffle pig. It's just digging and finding.
Yeah, I've done that a couple times by accident, and I'm looking at it and saying, why is that directory got the wrong name? And it's like, okay, it's working. do I really want to change it now? Because once I do, it disables the plugin. I gotta go reactivate the plugin. Because it seems to set it up.
Yeah.
I've never had any issue with it, but I suppose I can see the problem with it, and there's probably a configuration to ensure that you can get away with it.
Yeah, if I had a better situation at home where I could set up a test server at home,
Yeah.
I'd probably muck with it, but since we know better.
ServerPress is great for test servers on a Windows machine.
Yeah.
I use ServerPress. Very nice. It sets up an entire system for you. Works very well. I've only had a couple of confusing times on it when it wouldn't work on my computer, but yet it worked beautifully on my server. I've never quite figured out exactly what was going wrong.
Yeah, but to set up on your machine and then try and test a site that's on your machine, or the browser machine, because of localized files, doesn't give you a full testing environment. It will check the code, but it won't check file permissions.
No, because file permissions on your local machine are different than the file permissions
Yeah,
on a server out in the internet.
I would prefer to set up a test server away from my desktop.
Well, there you go. That's where you get another hosting account,
Yeah.
and you install and
we
take
have to-
down websites as you want, or do like I do. And I own 2 domains, SandboxPage and SandboxPage1.com, or SandboxPage2. SandboxPage and SandboxPage2.com, my 2 sandbox sites. And I'm constantly throwing stuff at them to see what's happening. And they're on 2 different servers, which although my servers are all configured the same, it's really funny how you can configure a server identical and they still run differently. So yeah, it makes it for great in that aspects. Any other questions? Anything I can help you with, or?
That was what I understand, that we have only monitoring and we don't have good reason to stop hacking.
What's that? I didn't
We
quite
don't-
understand that.
We don't have good reason to stop all attacking.
Oh, you'll never be able to stop the attackers.
Yeah, but what about the header?
The header?
Yeah, on your website.
Oh, the header data. You'll find that I did that. I covered some of the header data in one of my last presentations for.
That I'm looking
setting
on the
up.
website. Yeah, you have all
Yeah, that information goes into your Htaccess file.
Uh-huh.
Is where the header data and security data goes. I usually use that just for announcing what type of SSL is used and how to recognize it. I can't remember all the specifics on it at the moment. But,
Yeah, that this is possible to attack on the header.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But another question. When the website going and you look for browser,
Mm-hmm.
that people sometimes do copy
Mm-hmm.
or print.
Yeah.
I forget right now, is company who doing stop. You don't touch nothing on this website.
Mm-hmm.
This is like freezing.
Mm-hmm.
No copy, no print, nothing.
Oh, I can still copy and paste from a website. You
Yeah.
can't stop that. If a web browser can read the website, anyone with a little bit of knowledge can get everything that's printed on that browser screen.
Mhm.
It's not that hard to do. And if you're trying to find a way to stop copyright violations, that is a never-ending war, and it's not something you can do with plugins. Over the years, I've seen multiple ways to try and protect images, prevent people from downloading them, prevent people from copying and pasting text, blocking right-click on the mouse and other things. All that does is slow down or stop the mostly honest person, or the honest person, the person who really wants to get through it. There's ways you can go in and you can read the underlying code. Plus, the simple fact is when you download a web page to your website, it's cached on your computer. And once it's cached on the computer, if you know where to find those cache files in your computer, you can go find those files and open them up on your local computer. You know, one of the things I do, if there's something I really want and I really want to save a web page, maybe for future reference or something else, I'll go up and I'll click File, Save As, and I'll save the entire page to my local computer, and it will actually download all of their images. If they've got videos attached to it, it'll download the videos. If they've got audio attached to it, it downloads the audio. Gets it all for me and stores it on my computer. I've done that a few times.
Yeah, you can frustrate them, but you can't stop them.
That's all you can do is frustrate people. You can't stop them.
Like a trick I've seen used, sort of, is snugging in text that's made with CSS to be made invisible.
Yeah.
And then when you grab the body of text, the invisible stuff comes along.
Yeah.
But the CSS rules don't come along and go into Word. Like Microsoft Word doesn't have an equivalent that says don't display this text.
Yeah.
So when you copy it, you get the junk in the result, and then it becomes painful to pull it out.
Yeah.
But then that just bites you because Google is trying to. I mean, Google's the one that's copying everything. Google copies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they'll see
they-
junk, and they'll see what they're stopped on, and they won't index it.
They won't index you. So if you try to do it that way, you'll impact your SEO. You know, the biggest one I've seen that's been around for a while is if someone copies and pastes text from it, there's a plugin that if someone copies and pastes text, it automatically puts an addendum to the text that says this text was copied from this website. I've seen that a fair bit. But yeah, all you can do with copyright issues is slow them down or irritate them. But a dedicated or a person who really wants that info, they're going to get it. If it's accessible on the internet, it can be copied. I mean, at the very least, what they could do is screenshot it. You know, that's the very end, is they can just screenshot what they want.
Yeah.
Print. So there's nothing you can do on that, unfortunately.
You can't even put text in the JPEG because there's websites out there that'll convert JPEGs to text for you.
Yeah.
OCR.
Yeah, the problem with the internet is it's hard, and I know some photographers that are so frustrated because of the copyright theft of their images. You know, and getting people to comply is hard, and getting people to pay for the images is sometimes even harder.
Yeah,
You have to be a major corporation with some actual teeth and lawyers to get something done.
Yeah, it's not a problem with just information technology. It's just about any
Yeah.
industry.
Not all.
You
It's
just-
the world we live in.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because this is image.
Mhm.
I am no developer. I work with developers.
Mhm.
And I am administrator Unix, Linux, yeah, all database.
Yeah.
And I prepare servers
Mhm.
for especially database.
Yeah.
And what can I do? I separated everything. My database,
Mhm.
this is now working with a server with a website or another server.
All right.
It's separated. Firewall block my database and nothing more. And I don't have problem,
Right.
nothing, yeah. When somebody working on the cloud and another places that we take only account, we don't, and what the SAP HANA doing, they put everything to memory,
Right.
and this doesn't work because later it's too slowly.
Right.
When you compare your report from memory and from hard disk,
Mhm.
this is different situation. This doesn't work. And I think so problem is with traffic and cookies.
Right.
Because when all the time we have traffic, yeah?
Mhm.
Because this going about speed.
Right.
And another way, virtualization, when start in 2005,
Mhm.
started more hacking. Because virtual memory is working faster than hard disk.
Right.
And everything what working in virtual is dangerous.
Mhm.
Because we have no the same speed.
Okay.
And all the time when virtualization started, this happened.
Right.
And this is, I don't know why they create, maybe to do more business.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah,
The more they can
but-
virtualize it out, the more stuff they can stuff in there.
that's speed, and now 5G, it's crazy, because this doesn't work. PBX,
Yeah.
the best speed,
Mm-hmm.
have problem with security too.
Right.
Yeah, everywhere. Okay, that we don't have choice.
Okay.
We live with hackers.
Yeah. Well, until they're all caught and put to their own little special corner of hell, we're kind of stuck with them. The spammers are the ones I hate the worst. Spammers annoy me more than anything else.
That only separate.